All right. Thank you very much, Francis. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Ikechukwu Ezeji, the Program Officer for NIRA Academy and the moderator for this session. Thank you all for joining us in this session, which is coordinated by the Nigerian Internet Registration Association, NIRA. We also thank the West African Internet Governance Forum for the opportunity to be part of this forum. This afternoon, we'll be looking at promoting the domain names in Nigeria to enhance digital inclusion and accessibility. This is further broken down to 3 sessions, which will be facilitated by 3 speakers, and thereafter, we would have a joint question and answer session. I implore us to participate in these sessions by using the chat box and to ask questions and to engage. Without further ado, may I invite the speaker, Mr. Akimbo Adeola, who is the secretary to the governing board of the Association for Information and Communication Technology Local Content, that is ICT Local, and he's also the Secretary General for the Internet Society Nigerian chapter. Welcome, Mr. Akimbo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
You can share your slides from your end.
Okay, so I was hoping you would do that for me because I'm using my mobile. I'll try to do my best to engage quickly.
Okay, I'll go about it now. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, sorry, hold on. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever we are in West Africa or beyond. I want to appreciate NIRA for giving me the opportunity to do this presentation as an host organization in the ongoing West African Internet Governance Forum. This first slide speaks to what NIRA is all about. NIRA will be sharing the slides, so without taking much time, because I have very little time, I will be moving to the next slide. Next slide, please. On this slide, we will be trying to define innovation, and there are 2 boxes on the page. So with a show of hands, please, using the chat room, not the show of hands, using the chat room, please pick one. Which one would you prefer as a definition for innovation? Will you be picking box 1, which says the action or process of innovation, or a new method, idea, or product, or 2, which is innovation is the process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems. If I check the chat room later, I hope I will be seeing answers for each of the box 1 or box 2, which would you choose? Moving forward. Okay, I see 2, Mommy Duma 2, good, Tech Francis 2, Rashida 2, almost everyone is choosing the right one. So let's, the cat is out of the bag. Let's move to the next slide, please. Next slide. Now we need to change our mindset, because our mindset is actually what puts us in the wrong side of the definition of innovation. Innovation on its own could either be positive or negative. And so I'm leaving you with these 3. Innovations are particularly valuable when they contribute to the ways we can create wealth. Sometimes wealth may not be financial, it may not be capital, it may be other things. So let's move to the next slides. Next slide, please. What drives innovation? What drives innovation? Poverty is one thing that drives innovation. Next slide. Solution drives innovation. Next slide. Sustainability drives innovation. You started something and you believe that it has to continue. How do you go about it? Next slide. Responsibility, the load you have to carry, either as an organization or an individual or as a group or as a society. Next slide, please. Now, the world will never be ready for change. No matter how much time we give anyone in this world, they will never be ready for change. That is why change has to always come by innovation. Next slide. Now, digital inclusion initiatives are supposed to be something that would add value to the average person or group or institution. Internet service providers have created packages to subsidize your online capacity exercise. Innovative minds have created various training modules. The COVID-19 is exposing the value of oxygen and connectivity. And in these two indices, the take home here is that it's giving us an opportunity to also be self-sustaining and using the internet as a medium for our engagement. Next slide. Now, there's a NIRA strategy you ought to know about. It's a gameplay plan that has been working for years, and NIRA is giving you the opportunity to take hold of it and move forward in the right direction. Number one, NIRA's getting of domains or getting your domain name has been automated. From anywhere in the world, you can get your domain name. NIRA also understands that over the years, there's been this issue of the first come, first serve, and you are protected when you're on the NIRA domain. Why are you protected? Once you are getting your domain in the first year, and someone else wants to renew in the second year, NIRA would not allow such. So there are policies in tune with ensuring your security online. NIRA understands trademarks and patents, and they are always available to ensure that they mediate when such issues rise up in our industry. Moving to the next slide, please. Now, we have accredited registrars locally and internationally. And these are registrars who are worth the onion. So NIRA has set the strings for you to ensure that you can come in, pick your domain on different strings, .ng, .school.ng, .i.ng, .com.ng, .org.ng. And when you're talking of opportunities, there are a whole lot of opportunities behind one of the 5 top domain TLD in the whole world. And I'm saying this authoritatively, top 5 domains in the whole world. Next slide. Previous slide, please. Previous slide. Now, at no point in time do you come online that you do not get a response from any of the registrars. And that is what NIRA has also done. NIRA has automated its office in such a way and manner that 24/7 you get responses. So moving on. Sorry, thank you. Now, what's your unique strategy? What should be your own unique strategy? That is why NIRA has created this opportunity and has given us all the opportunity to come together, share thoughts, and be thinking in the right direction or the positive direction. The deliberate actions are one, you need to invest in research and personal discovery. You need to know where your niche is. What's your skill? What makes you stand out online? You need to understand your capacity baseline. How far have you gone educating, orientating yourself? The learning curve is a continuum. It doesn't end. It's always on and never ends. So you need to take action. Next slide. You need to act now. Act now means no opportunity wasted. Now, no opportunity wasted. You have to invest in your capacity. When you have discovered yourself in that area, you have to make sure you become a professional in that field. You have to brand your area of expertise. On one of the slide or most of the slide or all of the slide, you will see a brand. So you have to manage your time with deadlines. You can come online and get lost. You can come online and lose focus. So you need to ensure that your creative ideas are timed and there's a deadline. And then you have to ink it, think it. It's not everything that has to be online. First of all, you need to pick a paper and a pen, write it down so you don't forget it. Moving on. Next slide. Okay, thank you. You have to be self-sufficient applications to encourage communication and collaborations are already online. If you are using an Android or an iOS phone, all of these applications allow you to be able to manage whatever you want to do. Now, there are access to digital literacy platforms with supported hubs around the Federal Republic of Nigeria. NIRA has also been doing its best to ensure that a lot of these hubs get mentioned or are invited, their experts are invited to train people. There's affordable bandwidth with robot service at the moment. It may not be as affordable as we want it, but considering the pandemic, most of us get free bandwidth just because they believe that the CSR aspect needs to be observed. Now, the final one is ensuring that your internet-enabled devices are put to good use. It all depends, it belongs to you, and it all depends on you. Moving on. There are so many opportunities with NIRA, apart from having your domain name. NIRA runs a capacity building foundation that covers the nation. NIRA registrars are always giving out freebies to clients all year round. NIRA partners also, partners is registrars to build internet-related skills for end user community. Next slide. Now, thank you. Now, you need to understand that digital transformation is a process of using digital technologies to create new or modifying the existing engagement process, culture, customer experience to meet changing leadership, business, and market requirements. Next slide. Oh, please go back. Go back, please. Go back 2 pages, please. Yes, go back. These are NIRA domains. Are there challenges in the internet industry? Yes. Sorry, move back to the domain pages, please. The one that has the domains on them. Yes, stay there. Okay, these are NIRA domains. Like I said, do we have challenges online? Yes. Do we still have challenges with bandwidth, access, affordability? Yes. But one thing you can never take away is that these domains have been made available to ensure they address your creativity in whatever form. We will be getting to that page very soon, where you would understand when I mentioned the word creativity and innovation. Moving forward to the second to the last page, please. Next page, please. Now here, I'm giving you more than 1,000 domain names in the .ng portfolio that you could always go for. Some are already taken, some are free. You would notice that most of them are now, and one way or the other, they allow for you to pick a .i.ng or a .ng as the case may be. If you have any question, I would really appreciate, and thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akimbo, for that presentation. Without further ado, I would like to call on the next speaker. But please note that if you have questions for Mr. Akimbo, you can put it down in the chat box. We'll have a question and answer session after the 3 presentations. So moving on, I will call on the next speaker. The next speaker is Mr. Mohammed Rudman. Mr. Mohammed Rudman is the president of NIRA and is also the pioneer chief executive officer of IXPN, that is the Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria. And IXPN is Nigeria's first and only neutral IXP. So I'll be calling on the president, Mr. Rudman, to give his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ike. Delighted to be here. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, I think I can share it now. So first of all, good morning, everyone, and I would like to quickly thank the organizing committee of the West African IGF, especially our past president of NIRA and the chair of the West African Internet Governance Forum, Mrs. Mary Oduma. She is part of us here. We are delighted to have you, Ma. And I will proceed. My presentation today is on the role of local hosting in digital inclusion and accessibility. So I would like us to clarify what is this really accessibility and inclusion, because sometimes people confuse accessibility with availability. So let me just put the terms clear here. So accessibility is the degree to which product, devices, services, or environment is available to as many people as possible. While inclusion is the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have physical or mental disabilities and members of other minority groups. So the importance of all this is that digitally inclusive community is important to economic and workforce development, civil participation, education, healthcare, and public safety. It almost affects all facets of our lives. So what are really the challenges, especially in the West African region, because we are talking about West Africa, when it comes to digital inclusion and accessibility? The number one is the connectivity, the availability of internet infrastructure. There are a lot of areas within Africa where there is no signal for internet access, and that's a major challenge. And then you have the affordability. This affordability is that in some rural locations where you even have internet access at a higher speed, maybe at 3G, in some places, maybe even if it's possible at 4G, people cannot afford to connect based on the rate of the telcos that are charging for the data, and also the cost of the devices that are used to access the internet. Then you have accessibility. So even if you have the connectivity, you have the affordability, still some people might not be able to access it because maybe they cannot hear, and therefore some of the content on the internet, they cannot listen to it. And that's why, for example, in YouTube, you have where you can see the transcript. And some people cannot websites that are designed, there are guidelines for them to be designed for the ones that have issues with vision and the rest, and then people with special need. But in this part of Africa, the West African region, what I also realize is that relevant content in local language is a major issue, it's a major barrier, because a lot of people cannot speak English language. And especially when the content on the internet is always in English, those people cannot access that, that content. So that was why I mentioned relevant content in local languages. So you also have digital skills. There are people that do not have the necessary digital skills. In the local government, I have seen, personally, I've worked for a state government while some few years back, where we went and installed all these computer centers in local governments. And unfortunately, the people around do not know even how to use those desktop computers, which to me was a big problem. And that was why they are allowed to dust. And when you go back after a few years, the whole thing is damaged. So the last one is lack of trust. A lot of people that are educated, even though they might have the digital literacy, are scared of connecting to the internet. And some of them are scared, especially of doing online transactions. So part of what I will address here in terms of hosting content, it will address the three important ones: connectivity, affordability, and accessibility. But for digital skills, it's when you have the first three available that you look towards those trainings and towards sensitization for the lack of trust. So why do we really pay more in West African region for the internet access? If you look at this diagram here, you will see the international portion divided, with national portion. For most of the West African countries, the scenarios is the same thing, even though this is specifically maybe talking about Nigeria. So internet internationally is cheap. That's why when you travel, you will see homes that have 100 Mbps link capacity, some even much higher, maybe a gig capacity. because the cost is around 0.1 cents to maximum maybe $1 per Mbps. So that's where the internet is. So most of our carriers, the submarine cable operators, will connect to the internet exchange points in Europe, for example, will connect to the global tier one service providers, and they will link cable all the way from Europe to any of the West African countries and land there. When it's there, the cost has changed because of the cost of transportation, and that cost has now increased to around $2 to $5. Those submarine cable operators will now sell it out to maybe tier two service providers, bigger service providers, where those bigger service providers will now sell to another smaller tier three service providers or even community networks in some small towns. So as you can see, the prices keeps increasing as you move towards the end user. That's where the cost is. And unfortunately, in Africa, the end users are the ones that do not have the resources to pay. And the money moves away from Africa all the way back to Europe, because just like the way we have containers in Africa coming in filled and going back empty, the same thing with our packets. We are more of net downloaders than upload. So this is to demonstrate clearly, for example, when it comes to Afrinic, when you look at Afrinic IP addresses, the first graph, the first one with the map, is from telegeography. It shows the bandwidth utilization of African nations as they move towards Europe. So for example, you will see that Nigeria, South Africa, and the rest mostly are going towards the UK, while most of the Francophones are heading towards France. And Cloudflare, the second graph here in Cycle is from Cloudflare. They analyzed over 100,000 IP addresses from African region that are behind their servers and found out the ones that are hosting content. I realized where those contents are hosted. So 43.7% are hosted in South Africa, while 10% are hosted in US, the Netherlands, and the rest, including some other countries. So you can see that Africa has a lot of content, but that content is not hosted within Nigeria. And that's why we had to lay a lot of submarine cable infrastructure to reach that content. So how do we reverse this? And to address the three things is within you register a domain that is local and you host that domain locally. You don't need to pay US dollars, especially for example in Nigeria, where now dollars keep going higher. It reduces strain, so therefore on our foreign earnings, and hosting locally provides additional revenue opportunities to local ISPs and data centers, which in turn create more jobs and technical competencies. And these data centers have direct and indirect impact on the economy, job creation, tax, platform, and other IT professionals. But if these data centers realize that there is a business due to the increase of opportunities in data hosting, companies will start to spread. And that is what we are noticing in Nigeria. Now there are companies trying to build data centers in Port Harcourt. There are companies trying to build data centers in Kano, and some of the remote locations that initially people will not build data centers. For example, we have an exchange point in Abuja where there is zero content network connected, and gradually we have seen emergence of these big global networks connecting in those locations. And they are telling me that as long as we keep going to those sites and they see the viability, they will be there. So with that, if you have data centers in remote locations, it means that some of these big content providers will connect here, and therefore the cost of internet will drop. If the cost of internet drops, you will see emergence of community network. I have seen it this live in Nigeria. You see emergence of community networks that are specifically selling capacity to institutions, to within their environment at cheaper cost. So that affordability, and availability will happen because of this kind of spread of data centers. And then the benefits also continue. See, local content hosted, also domestically hosted, lower latency. There is significant improvement. And if you lower the latency, because the information you are browsing is very close to you, if you lower if you have it with a better quality of service, more people will join in, and therefore internet becomes more cheaper. Hence, end users pay less. They take more capacity due to the lower cost, and hence make good use of it, by especially not just for social media, where a lot of people are now using it because there are social media bundles with the telecommunication companies. People can really use it to learn, and do serious stuff. So because of this general reduction of internet cost, the emergence of community networks becomes prevalent. We have seen this, as I mentioned. So usually, even though you have local content hosted within data centers, it's critical for most of the West African countries to have internet exchange points. And to allow those internet exchange points to flourish, government should provide special intervention to ensure that those exchanges are surviving. And what is an exchange point? It's just a physical infrastructure that allows network operators, content operators, an example with Internet of Nigeria. If you look at this graph here, you will see that, the cost of transit, you will see a bar that shows the costs of transit, and you will see the IXPN cost. So generally, cost of bandwidth in Nigeria ranges. So I just got an average cost of around $8 per Mbps. So I am analyzing right now a member that is connected to the Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria. This graph was taken this morning. Okay, so if you look at it, this member that is here that has a capacity of 10 gigabit Ethernet port at the exchange point is utilizing 80% of that capacity. Sometimes it goes all the way to 100% if you look at the peak of that graph. Okay, so and the ISP is paying $1,000. So if you divide $1,000 with the utilization of 8,000 megabits per second that he is using, the cost per Mbps to this service provider is $0.125, which is equivalent to 51 Naira. Okay, so if you multiply the 8,000 for the cost, sorry, I even changed the price this morning to $5 instead of the $8 I show in the graph, to $5, you get an average cost per month of $40,000. If this service provider is not connected to the internet, he is taking this capacity from a submarine cable operator, they will be paying $40,000 on a monthly basis. But by connecting to the internet exchange point, they are just paying only $1,000. And therefore you remove $1,000 from the $40,000, you have $39,000 as savings monthly to the service provider. This is around 16 million Naira. This is an exchange rate of an official exchange rate, which is around 410. Right now, it's much, much higher than that. So you can see a clear impact of local hosting. This is because some of the data that Nigerians are browsing is localized. And that is why if you see in the graph there, the red line is the upload, the green line is the download. So this is just a big picture of the West African region to show you that there are 16 countries in West Africa. 12 of the African countries have exchange points, and only 4 do not have. And the 4 are shown here below, even though some of them have a lot of autonomous system number, which warrants that they should have an exchange point, especially like, for example, in Sierra Leone and Niger Republic. Because they don't have exchange point, for example, in Niger now, there is one of the big service providers that is trying to connect to Lagos all the way from Niger, just so that they can access local content within Nigeria. In Cameroon too, for example, even though it's not West Africa, there is an ISP there that is now trying to connect to Nigeria because they don't have an exchange point, to show you the benefit of an exchange point and localization of traffic. So if someone localizes their traffic, it provides cheaper internet access, which is part of affordability that I mentioned earlier, and it creates more service providers that are community-based. For example, in Kano, we have seen smaller service providers emerging because of our presence there, and therefore drop the cost of internet and make it more affordable. So this is just a brief view of IXPN. We have 85 members counting, and we have 4 locations in Lagos. We have 4 other locations in Nigeria, in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Enugu, and Kano. 50 gigabits per second. I think because of time, I had to rush. They said 10 minutes. I don't know whether I have exceeded my time or I have time. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and thank you for joining this session. If there are questions, IK, maybe later I'll be available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the presentation. So we'll have to move to the next slide, the next speaker. Please, may I invite the last speaker for this session, Dr. Eugene Ohu. Dr. Ohu is a member of the Executive Board of Directors of NIRA. He is a senior lecturer and head of Department of Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management in Lagos Business School. Welcome, Dr. Ohu. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Aiki. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Since there are translators here, I won't even try to say bon après-midi. I hope that means good afternoon as well. So, thank you to my colleagues, the previous speakers, and I think they have laid the foundation, the groundwork for the few thoughts I want to share. The first speaker, Mr. Kimber, talking about innovation, novel solutions to old problems. And then one of the problems he highlighted there was poverty. I'm not trying to summarize their presentation, but simply that I thought that they were very good foundations for the thoughts that I was going to share. And one of the things he also said was, you have an idea. So the next question that will come up will be, how do I implement my idea? Okay, what capacities do I need to implement that idea? And then thinking of my own presentation, while he was speaking about that, you have an idea. The next question I ask myself is, what role does training have in helping me implement my idea on the one hand, or what role does training have in helping ignite even new ideas? Perhaps training might even plant the seed for new ideas. And then towards the end, the recommendation he made was invest in capacity building. And one of the capacities was digital literacy. He talked about digital literacy platforms. Why am I going all this route? Because that, in a nutshell, is actually a summary of what I want to share, which is the role that the Nigeria Internet Registration Association is trying to play in this capacity building. And then when Mr. Rodman was speaking in talking about connectivity, in talking about inclusion, he listed some examples of inclusion and accessibility. And I talked about connectivity, affordability. And then another idea that occurred to me thinking about one of the things that NIRA is doing is the fact that even the problem of accessibility provides that problem might give room for innovation, even the problems of affordability. So those problems are opportunities. All right, so perhaps at that point, having said all this, I can actually end my presentation but what's my plan? Very briefly, I want us to look at where we are right now. And by the way, the cap I'm wearing is from the point of view of NIRA, okay, which is what we are all doing here. Where we are in terms of access, inclusion, and accessibility. And I thought I should also talk about, since the environment, the operating environment is important, I thought I should also talk about how interested the Nigerian government is in this, okay? So if there's any government person here, don't get nervous, okay? Because it's all good, actually. How interested is the Nigerian government? And then NIRA and capacity building. And I would also like to talk about a special platform, a special vehicle, which Mr. Kimbo alluded to in his presentation, the NIRA Academy and Resource Center. I thought this overview of global internet use might be useful as a refresher for us, because these are things we already know. Total number of global internet users, about 4 billion people. And then the next one talks about the internet users as a percentage of total global population. So approximately 60% of the world use the internet. And then this number grows by about 7% every year. And then second to the last graph is asking, how long do people spend on the internet? 6 hours. And then how many people are accessing the internet via mobile? 92.8%. Now keep that last number in mind, especially when we now come closer home to Nigeria. So this morning I went to the website of the Nigerian Communications Commission because they keep statistics of internet usage. Pardon me, because these graphs are a bit small. It's talking about broadband subscription in Nigeria gives about 75 million. And then now I don't know how I expect you to read the one on the right, but I'm going to help a bit here. And as at May 2021, about 140 million people connect to the internet via their mobile devices. This is not surprising. Looking at these numbers, if you put the broadband subscription side by side with active internet subscriptions, together you say 140 million plus 75, about 215 million connections to the internet. But then we'll have to keep in mind that people have multiple connections. For example, I mean, I have at least 3 different places. I have on my phone, a router, and then you may have on a tablet. So if you use a conservative estimate, you might say there are at least 70 to 100 unique internet subscriptions. Now let's break that number a little down and say, let's say there are 70 million connections. In each household, there will be at least 2 users. Then that's roughly 140 million users. So where am I going with all this? If we say roughly there are 140 million users, if we are thinking about capacity building and digital economy, and perhaps trying to diversify the economy, 140 million people, that is a huge market. That is a huge market. All right, now, the next question I wanted to ask is the government interested? And then to answer that question, I'm going to share, I don't expect you to look at this document now, but I'm going to share a document that I'm referring to here, which I have put in the chat box. The National Economy Policy and Strategy. There is a version from 2020 to 2030. It will be an interesting read, but I'm going to make reference to some of the things here. But before coming back to this National Economic Policy and Strategy, it was also interesting to see some of the goals that the current Nigerian government set for itself to improve security, reduce corruption, and expand the economy. And if we look at some things that are happening, maybe either due to the effort of the government or due to the environment or simply due to the innovation of individuals, some things seem to be happening. That at the moment, the current estimate is that ICT businesses seem to contribute about 13% of the GDP. Nigerians have been winning awards on the ICT industry, and then recently we are all aware of the $200 million acquisition of Paystack, a Nigerian tech startup by Stack. And although the moves to get the bank verification number or national identity number may have been uncomfortable for Nigerians, but perhaps you see there an attempt by the government to digitalize the national database or even the treasury single account, which perhaps one aim is to reduce corruption in the public sector. So without holding brief for the government, if I simply look at the digitalization of different operations, well, you might see some things there. But I'm not done with that question. Is the government interested? Let's look at that document that we refer to. And in that document, you find that the Nigerian government set for itself so-called pillars of Nigeria's digital economic policy and strategy. And there are 8 pillars. I'm going to look at one of them for the moment, digital literacy and skills. Now, if you recall Mr. Kimbo's presentation, this was one of the recommendations, right? So for innovation, you have an idea to implement it, you need to invest in capacity building. And this seems to be one of the things that the government has set for itself. And I think that's a good introduction to the NIRA Academy and Resource Center. So what's the goal? This is designed to be a first-rate training and resource center. And then there are several people whose names I'd like to mention. They're not aware I'm going to mention their names, but justice demands that because the NIRA Academy has been there since 2014. Mrs. Mary Uduma, former president of NIRA, Ms. Reverend Sunday Fulayan, and Mr. Shehu. Okay, and then of course, the current president of NIRA has made this one of his, if you like, key deliverables. Now, it will be very interesting, especially if you're thinking about capacity building. So the NIRA Academy is a corporate social responsibility, if you like, special purpose vehicle. And then the idea is to foster the evolution of a robust and healthy domain name marketplace in Nigeria by, on the one hand, developing the DNS industry locally and internationally. We need through skill acquisition and capacity building. But it's not enough to have information about domain name systems, but there are other knowledge areas, okay. Capacity building for webmasters and content managers. Maybe I should mention here too that NIRA has partnered with the Bureau of Public Enterprises to train webmasters and content managers in the ministries, departments, and agencies. So there's a lot going on there. So apart from trainings in DNS, there's also you also have to provide business knowledge to the budding digital entrepreneurs. For example, there have been webinars on the Corporate Affairs Commission or how to understand the new regulations like CAMA and things like that. And then when registrars are accredited, they need to be trained. The academy has been very useful here as well. There have been and there will be trainings on cybersecurity because the more we deploy our businesses online, well, the more we need to be aware of these, right? For example, Mr. Rudman referred to lack of trust, for example, on doing business on the internet. So the NIRA Academy provides training on cybersecurity, networking, business development, and then certifications as well. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, if you recall, when talking about the 8 pillars, I seem to imply that NIRA was only involved in the second stage, but no, if you look at all of them, you will see that even in service infrastructure, content development, that these all involve different skills and knowledge areas that if you have a digital literacy platform like the NIRA Academy has, it will go a long way to solving all this. Now, the NIRA Academy is entering a new phase, and then the new phase with a new, if you like, a rejigging, okay, with a takeoff grant so as to become that first-rate capacity building academy. And then there will be a hybrid delivery of training online, face-to-face. It's a non-profit, but again, it has to be self-sustaining. So there'll be paid learning, but at least 20% of beneficiaries will be benefiting for free. Now, my last slide. If all this work, what are the business opportunities? And I thought to share some thoughts with you, opportunities in the digital economy, because the idea is if we improve inclusion and accessibility, then you will capacitate many more Africans through their digital skills and knowledge to contribute to the diversification of the economy, right? So there are some I just thought of, I'm sure in our conversation, you can suggest more. If you train people to develop websites, you will create jobs for these people. And these people will put more businesses online. Imagine the hundreds of millions of Nigerians, billions of businesses. Now, if they go online, the knock-on effect of that is that the businesses online will reach more. They would even reach a global audience and market, and as a result, they will sell more. So what is happening here? You're boosting the economy. Then another thing is perhaps also, as we have seen during I'm sorry, I didn't know how I got muted. All right, so I was talking about opportunities in digital economy. So develop websites, you put more businesses online. The more businesses there are online, they'll reach a global market and a global audience. And then the other thing I was mentioning is that as we experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, remote work has become like, we like to say, the new way of working. And then think about it. If people are now used to remote work, if you give people more skills and knowledge in digital businesses, from here, Africans will be employed for global enterprises. So this is a win-win for everybody. And then the income comes back, the economy is boosted. And then of course, knowledge, social media knowledge and search engine optimization knowledge will expose small businesses to a global market. And then, yeah, so I think in all, the summary is that innovative solutions to old problems, whatever those problems are opportunities. But at the end, those opportunities mean that we need to invest in capacity building, as the first speaker mentioned. And one of that is digital literacy, and some of the opportunities that the NIRA Academy is providing. Thank you for your attention. All right. Thank you. I think I will leave it here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho, for that presentation. I think we can move to the next session, which is a question and answer session. So I would like to start with the first question. Please note that if you would like to unmute your mic to ask a question, you can simply raise your hand while I go ahead to read the other questions on the chat box. Okay, so I'll take the first question on the chat box. Mr. Olusegun is saying that what is internet change point doing to educate, support, and encourage local content creator to fully adopt local content for their contents? I think this question is directed to Mr. Rudman. Hello, okay. Mr. Rudman. Okay.
Yes, okay. Because let me answer that question. Because the exchange point do not really have a direct relationship with content creators. So to reach out to them is going to be extremely difficult. That is why, for example, we partnered with NIRA some few years back to have what is called the Local Internet Content Forum to see how we can bring the various internet hosting and what is it called, website development and the rest to come together to address the solution. But as it is right now, NIRA is we're trying to see how we can collaborate with CAC to ensure that all registered organizations initially will start with at least a free homepage website, and the domains will be hosted locally. And NIRA as well has done several events across different locations to see how we can ginger those content creators to see how they can host their contents locally. But as an exchange point directly, no, the advocacy is is just through some of the other partners that we have, so that those partners can reach out to their various constituencies regarding the local hosting. Yes, thank you for that question, Shagun. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I don't know, I think this Hussein is saying, but the Nigerian government, we are not ready to see the opportunities in digital economy. I think I don't know, Dr. Hu, do you want to say something about that?
Let me try to say the one that will not take me to jail. No, but there is one of the responses there, I think from Abdul Fattah saying, I think that's why it's necessary to educate and orientate people in government, especially those in public office. When I saw that comment, and I think we have one big elephant in the house when we're talking about access to digital opportunities, okay? I mean, you have, for example, access, for instance, to social media. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Everybody knows, for instance, that Twitter is blocked, politicians not being educated. Balancing concerns for security, and then, but just to be sure that whatever decisions you make don't harm your people. So I don't think it's a problem of lack of awareness, but if you like, being more concerned about the impact on the people of the decisions you make.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. I would like to move forward to the next question. I think Abibat is asking, with the level of broadband and internet penetration in Nigeria, can you say Nigeria can conveniently adopt electronic transmission of electoral results? I think
In my
this.
opinion,
Okay, go ahead, sir.
yes, in my opinion, yeah, can you hear me, Ike?
Yes, sir, I can, clearly.
So, in my opinion, if the question is can they, I would say yes, they can. And I'll give, if you like, a local example. The voting within NIRA is done through e-voting. And the voting process, as far as I know, is transparent and secure. I know that when that system started, I wondered myself if that platform was developed in-house and how much you could trust it, trust that it wouldn't be tampered with. But one of the things that was done was transparency about how the process works, that it is scrambled, that the operators do not see the back end, and that you separate the different layers. So the point I'm trying to make here is trust. It's not that the government cannot transmit results electronically. So if we trust the process, and what can they do to make us trust the process? Be transparent about the process. And then they separate the different layers and their checks and balances. And I think we can do it.
Thank you so much, sir. I think there's another question here from Mary Uduma. She's asking, are there any transit operators in West Africa or in Nigeria?
Okay, yeah, yes, let me answer that. Yeah, so there are from Niger, for example, to Nigeria is difficult. You have to find a point. For example, the ISP I was talking about, we're trying to find a point that where MTN has a connection close to the border, and therefore they can extend that connection to MTN, and then MTN can carry their traffic to the exchange point within Nigeria. But for example, in the other West African countries, yes, there are submarine cable operators that have multiple landing stations. So for example, Main1 has connection in Nigeria, has in Ghana, has in Abidjan. If you look at ACE, they have in Nigeria, they have in Benin Republic, they have in others. So yes, there are multiple points of connection of the various submarine cables. So you can use them to move capacity. There was a time also, for example, I'm sure of phase 3 that have connection through to Benin Republic. You know, there are such instances, but it's not readily available 2 is a bit on the high side. It's always expensive, and that discourages regional connectivity because of the high costs. So there was a time we had a connection between Ghana and Nigeria exchange point. The cost per megabit, it's much higher from Ghana to Nigeria than from Ghana to London. And therefore, there is no business justification for an ISP to connect to Nigeria to fetch content. They rather fetch it in London. I hope I have answered your question, Ma.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I have a question from, I know there are discussions going on right now on the chat box, but I would like to pick just the question as per it. Francesco is asking, what of the esports space, as it is now in avenue food? There are a lot of Nigerian and West African youths that are striving and performing well in the esports avenue, but West African ISP don't recognize it as they are the largest consumers of internet. I think
okay. The question is not that clear. Maybe if they will ask directly where Mike, maybe to be clear, but this question is not clear, honestly.
Okay, Francesco, could you unmute your mic?
Yeah, hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah, like talking about the esports space, usually, as like I'm in Ghana, so I'm speaking in. Usually in Ghana, we have been hosting a lot of tournaments, international-based tournaments, like, let me say, like soccer, like FIFA or Mortal Kombat. That's the fighting space. But because of the inavailability, sorry for sometimes I speak Italian, so but because of the ISP having connectivity problem, usually we have not been able to connect and compete. Recently, there was even a Ghanaian guy who almost won the major title, but the internet locked him out. But he was really talented. So all this internet, how do you call it, consumers of gamers who complain. So I was even telling the telcos if they have a platform, so that they'll be able to hear or maybe get notified of all the complaints, so that they'll be able to work from there. But still, no answer from no one. So usually that's our main problem. And the cost of internet is really expensive. Even if the cost was expensive, but the quality was good, we don't mind. But here comes the case, the cost is expensive. It expires, and the quality too is not good. It frustrates the youth. So that is one of the major problems we are facing right now. Thank you.
That has to do, that's why in my slide I said government should support the exchange points. You know, there are countries in Africa that has incumbent operators and usually run by government, and therefore, you know, it's a kind of a monopoly. But in Ghana, it's not that way. I think government should maybe find a way to ensure that you know, they localize their traffic. For example, in Nigeria, 80%, I mean, 60 to 70% of our traffic is actually local now because of the exchange point. So government has to find a way to make this internet access available and affordable. Is government directly. There is no single operator that can intervene. I think you need government intervention, and you have to keep talking, you know, in such forums. We hope that there is a government person from Ghana that is here listening to you, possibly maybe they will engage you further. But please keep the advocacy, keep talking in every single opportunity you have. Possibly your government will find a way to address it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, I don't see any more questions on the chat box, but I think I saw Mrs. Mary's Uduma's hand was up before. I don't know whether she still wants to ask. She wants to ask a question. Hello, Mara.
Yeah, can you unmute me, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's been a very interesting session, and we're looking at what has been happening in Nigeria. Why I asked the transit operators question, Mohammed, if you can, is that I know that the most cost of traffic is the peering group that collect all the money. So I'm asking whether there are transit operators that can interconnect within themselves in West Africa. If there are some that in Ghana, you have answered that there are landing points, but how do we move the traffic in such a way that it becomes local within West Africa, instead of Ghana and Nigeria trying to connect and we'll all go to London at the exchange point, at the ISP in London, transit point in London, instead of us just connecting ourselves, Ghana and Nigeria, Niger. And you have also answered that it is pricey when it comes to private connection. So I don't know whether there are efforts, maybe through the ISOC or through the West Africa, through the ECOWAS, whether something can be done in such a way that there could be a local, a West Africa exchange point that could move our traffic and it becomes local. If we're moving traffic from Nigeria to Burkina Faso, the way it travels and it comes back just to Nigeria. So in terms of connecting the West Africa side, apart from what is happening in Nigeria. And again, at the Nigerian level, are we connecting from all points in Nigeria, from all the 6 geopolitical zones, or there are some that are still not connected, because we're looking at inclusion and access, so that there could be something to be done to be able to connect others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Aike, can I take can I answer?
Yes, please. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ma. So the issue of regarding West African interconnectivity has been in our minds for years now, and that was why we engaged with Ghana, trying to see how we can do that. And I happened to go to some of the few West African countries to discuss with the various exchange points. So the problem, one, is that some of the exchange points are not yet matured because they don't even have, for example, permanent staff that are working for the exchange point, so that you can engage with those people to push for that regional connectivity. Some of them are working for the ISPs and some of them are working with the incumbent. So for example, the Benin Republic exchange point is hosted by Benin Telecoms. And therefore there is no incentive for Benin Telecoms to connect to Nigeria, because they are the ones selling internet to Nigeria. It means that they localize their traffic. Why would they want to localize when they are part owners of a submarine cable that goes all the way to Europe, for example? So part of the things we always tell them is that, for redundancy's sake, should there be a fiber cut, they can reach Nigeria directly. So to some extent, is the level of maturity, the politics of it all, because some of these countries are not English speaking. There is this division between Anglophone and the French speaking. These issues that, for example, some of them want to really become also the regional IXP. Why should they connect, for example, to Nigeria? So we have been looking at it in different ways. So we have written to the Ministry of Communications and even NCC to say what we need is to have an engagement with all the various stakeholders. And we know that we have what is called the WATRA, the West African Regulatory Agency, similar to NCC. In fact, NCC is now chairing, I think, WATRA for now. So the idea is to use WATRA, call for a summit of the West African region in terms of IXPs, and let's look at the issues and find a solution to that, because it's not something only 1 or 2 countries can do. It's something that all the countries collectively needs to come together, and especially the government side, the regulators, and provide necessary intervention for the price to drop and to provide that connectivity. Regarding your second question in terms of connectivity within Nigeria, yes, we have 5 geopolitical zones connected. We don't have an internet exchange point in the Northeast. We are planning to see how we can do it either this year or next year, so that we have it in the 6 geopolitical zones for that access. And our dream in future, just for the accessibility, is to ensure that the exchange point in all those locations flourishes, and we have content hosted in local languages, because that is a barrier. For example, in Russia, when they had the internationalized domain name in 2010, the amount of registrations significantly improved, because Russians that have no knowledge of English keyboard can now use an entirely Russian keyboard to access websites and to browse. And by 2014, they were the most, used CCTLD when it comes to ID, and they grew that number within a few years to about 300,000, I think 900,000 domains. So that's our own dream, to see how we can have local languages, things that are hosted, how to be a carpenter, how to do welding, how to do all that in Hausa, in Yoruba, in Igbo, so that people can participate on the internet and they can make positive impact on the internet without necessarily speaking English language. So I hope I've answered your questions, Ma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our time is fast spent. I would like to thank everyone for attending this session and participating towards the discussions in this session. I also like to thank the speakers, Mr. Akimbo, Mr. Rudman, and Dr. Ohu for their presentations and discussions. Thank you very much. And may we continue to move the Nigerian flag forward. May we continue to move the African flag forward to the betterment of everyone. Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so.
Okay, thank you, Francis. I think we're done.
Right.
Yes, we can end.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, once again.
Thanks so much and have a good day. See you again in the next session.
All right.
Okay, so we have a next section on digital sensitivity in West Africa countries and internet impact assessment focus in action. So I'll see you all in the next section. We're going to start at 13 hours UTC. See you. Bye. Okay, so see you all in the next section on digital inclusivity in West Africa countries and internet impact assessment at exactly 13 hours UTC. See you all, bye, have a good day.